All right, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be covering an ancient philosophy, a Taoist philosophy that will change your reality. All right, let's get into it. So today we're going to be talking about this concept of Wu Wei, which is a philosophy in the Taoist ancient philosophy. It's a Chinese philosophy, and this basically can be roughly translated as effortless action. Okay, why is this important? When we are doing things in life, we want to go after that nice job, build a business, get into that relationship, what have you. We tend to obsess over things. Human beings, we tend to want to gain control over things. I have found that when you can apply this principle of Wu Wei, which is effortless action, it can help you achieve more out of life without all the tension, all the burnout, all the stress that we often put ourselves under. So Wu Wei means effortless action, action plus no effort. How the hell does that work? Okay, how can you take action without effort? And basically what this means is we are taking action towards our goals, whatever we want to do, but we are doing it without much effort. Meaning we're taking action, but we're not trying to have a rigid, form of control or trying to make things happen so strongly. The way I visualize this is this simple little diagram here, very simple, which is, this is you. You are this circle right here, okay? And so then you have, let's say you have a goal here. Here's your goal. So here's where you're at, and you want to get to your goal. So you're going to take action to get to your goal. The problem is that when you bypass this middle piece here, which is the universe, reality, that weird thing that we can't explain, but that, has an effect on us. Your car breaks down. You get fired from your job. Someone, doesn't want to be your friend anymore, or you fall out of a relationship. That is the universe. It is the things we can't control that affect us. Getting sick, someone dying in our family, okay? And so the problem is that when we try and take action towards a goal, but try and circumvent the universe and bypass it, it creates restrictions in us, okay? Because we're going against the natural flow of the universe. And so when we take action towards our goal, but we work in harmony with the universe, which is part of this Wu Wei concept, we take advantage of the flow of the universe. Think of like a river. I always think of like a river, okay? If you fight the flow of the river, because you want to get to, someplace over there by the rocks, it's going to be hard because you're going to be fighting against the current of life, the flowing of the river. And so by that very action, you are fighting against the thing that surrounds you. And it's the same thing with life. If you fight the flow of life, then you are making it harder on yourself. And also you are making it more difficult for opportunities to come to you, for things to flow naturally, which is that element of the universe, how things flow. So when we can tap into the universe and flow with it, it gets easier to get to our goal, because then we're not rigid and we're opening ourselves up to, being flexible to new opportunities. One of the most common things that make them fail is they get so dead set on like, it needs to be done like this, and we're going to do it like this, and this is how it's being done. The problem with that is that when you get dead set on things, you're closing off doors. You're closing doors to potential opportunities, of hidden opportunities that can come to you through flow, through discovery, through experimentation. And so really the process here is giving into the flow of the universe while still taking action, right? One of the common things we'll see here is when people talk about things like this, Wu Wei, there's different concepts out there, but this concept of being more in flow with the universe, more receptive to opportunities that come to you in the flow of the universe. One of the first things people will say is, how do I do that without taking action? Like, do I just like do nothing? But this is the distinction here. It's not doing nothing. It's taking action, but while giving into the flow of the universe, being open to what may come your way, okay? That is the distinction. You think of two polarities. You have one side where you're super, macho and like self-starter and intense, and you're like, we're going to be doing this, it's going to be like this, and we're doing it exactly like this, 100%. And you try to control everything, okay? Then you get the other side where it's fully passive, and you're like, I'm not going to do anything. I'll just let the universe, bring me what it will. The problem is when you go to either of those extremes, you get problems, because they fight against the natural flow of the universe, where you can't be too rigid because you cut out the flow, you cut out the opportunity, you cut out the flexibility. And you can't be too passive because then you're not creating momentum, right? You're not creating momentum for things to flow. And so that makes it difficult. And so then we come to this idea of, okay, when you try to force outcomes, there's this interesting mechanism of the universe, you might say, where by trying to force outcomes, it actually pushes those things away from you. And you can see this in real life. In anything I'm sure you've experienced before. You wanted something so bad, someone so bad, whatever. And the very act of you being so intense about having that thing, making it yours, controlling it, actually pushes it away from you. And so you become, in essence, like this silly little image here, you become the person standing on the island where nothing can come to you because you've locked yourself into a little island where you can't, everything that you are and have and what you're focusing on is just on the island, right? But when you open yourself up and you stop trying to force things, that island turns into, a continent. And that is a lot more. There's trees and horses. Shit's nice. So what we need to do is stop trying to force those outcomes. Go with the flow. Wu Wei. Take action, but stop trying to control things so much. Okay? And then we have this here as well, which is that rigidity makes you snap. Okay, what does that mean? You think of like a bamboo stick, right? The most rigid ones in an environment where there's like harsh winds, those things are going to snap. But the plants or the flora that is more bendable and flexible is the one that withstands those intense winds and things like that. And so by that analogy, the rigidity, when you're rigid in life, when you're rigid to potential opportunities, to seeing things your way, you are more prone to snapping, which is stress or burnout in the human analogy here, right? But when you are flexible, flexibility makes you receptive. It opens you up to hidden opportunities. Again, as we talked about, it opens those doors that if you were rigid, you would close. Again, say you want to do like your career and you're like, I want my career to be like this. I'm doing this, that's it. But when you do it like that and you're so rigid about it's going to be done exactly like this, at this time, in this amount of months like this, you're cutting yourself off from other opportunities, surprises, right? Interesting, happy surprises that the universe might bring you, okay? You close yourself off to those when you are rigid. So you want to be able to remain open to the flow of the universe. This is very important because it opens you up to those hidden opportunities. Think of how many times, you can look at anybody in history, how many times have people, celebrities, athletes, whatever, entrepreneurs, you have interviews with them or you talk to them and they're like, I was doing this and then that didn't work out, and I was doing this and that didn't work out, and then I got this random idea, this random opportunity, and my life skyrocketed, right? So we can never really see the path. This is the thing. And if we try too hard, we end up snapping underneath that weight because we put too much pressure on ourselves and everything else. And so here we come to the final topic here, which really is one of the biggest things for why Wu Wei can help you in your life, which is that consistency and adaptability are key to success, okay? Short bursts are ineffective. This is one of the biggest things you'll always see in any sort of self-help or discipline things. If you want to have long-lasting success, things take longer than you think. So one of the biggest things is going to be able to actually stick in there for the long run, right? To be consistent over a long period. Doing something for a month doesn't really yield as much results. Doing something for a year or even 5 years or a decade, that's what yields the biggest results. And so in order to be consistent, you have to be able to be open and also a little more free-flowing. Because again, as we discussed with the rigidity part, if you are too rigid, that's how you get into burnout areas, okay? Because you're pushing too hard, right? You're trying to control things too much. You let yourself down, and perfectionism and all that stuff, seeps into your mind. And so it's very important that for consistency to go with the flow. Set up a schedule, right? Have discipline, know where you're going, and take action a little bit day by day. And the same thing with adaptability, right? If you're on a path, let's say, always come back to the entrepreneurship path, you have to be adaptable because so many things are going to be changing. Technology is going to be changing. Opportunities are changing, right? Your resources are changing. Who you are day by day is changing, okay? So you have to be adaptable, be willing to change and iterate as things go. And that means being open to like, if things aren't working out, things need to change. You need to be open to making those radical changes when they are needed, but also be open to knowing when to stick in there. Right. And so this is part of like knowing, having that sort of flow, right? And embodying Wu Wei. And of course, short bursts are ineffective. And so if you want to get to the top of this mountain, for example, you're not going to get there by, downing Red Bull and trying to climb the entire mountain in like an hour, right? It's going to take time. Even, you look at the example with people who climb high elevation landmarks like Mount Everest and whatnot. They have to literally climb a little bit and then stop and then camp for a while to let their body adjust to the rise in elevation, right? Or because you go too fast, you can't just climb up the mountain because it's going to be such a shock to your body that it can actually kill you. So they have to literally stop at a certain point and rest to let their body readjust. This is the same thing. You have to be able to go in there for the long term to build that success for anything you want to do, relationship, career, that business, right? And so embodying Wu Wei, effortless action, means you release the rigidity, the control, and you accept the calm action. And you have to have trust that you are going somewhere without knowing exactly what that path looks like. And so consider that, my friend. Consider the concept of Wu Wei. Free flowing with the universe, taking action, but not having such a rigid control of where it needs to go, at what time, to what degree, or how it's going to look, right? Be a little open to things. And that's it for today, my friends. Leave a comment if you have any questions, if you agree, if you disagree, right? And subscribe for more videos in terms of psychology and mindset and other things like that. And have a nice day.